Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest issue 1 comic books that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content and you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, you came to the right place, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to show that extra love and support towards my channel, why don't you consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel? All you gotta go onto is that home screen and just go ahead and hit that join button. Super easy. There's 3 separate tiers, and as low as 99 cents a month, you guys can get early access to my videos. You can get stickers for your comments, which is really cool. And also you can get a monthly membership badges to flex how long you've been a member of the YouTube channel for, and some of you have been members for quite a long time. So as always, guys, it's much appreciated if you do, or if you don't, it just helps support the channel. So with that, guys, let's get started with this week's episode. We got a fun show for you today. There's a lot of decent number ones that I'm going to be talking about, and our first one is Sir. This is issue 1, released by Boom Studios. This book is $5. It's a motorcycle jousting comic book, okay? So when I heard that concept, I'm like, sounds like it could be cool. And the writer and artist here is Fell Hounds. The artwork in this book, for me, I felt like it was very mid. I thought it really missed the mark on a comic that has to do with motorcycle jousting. When you think about it, it's like, dude, if you can put the right details into this book could look really good. And honestly, my expectations of this book was almost to be like a I Heart Skull Crusher, okay? But it definitely missed the mark here, as most of the comic book didn't even have anything to deal with the motorcycle jousting. It was really probably about 3 or 4 pages of the book, and the sequences that it showed, I just felt like, it just very much lacked. This may have been the whole, the best page in the whole comic book, and for me, that was very mid as well. And when it came to the story, it was about this girl who goes to this school, and I think it's Nico, and then she has another relationship with another female where she kind of ghosted for about a year, and there's some situations that is going on between the two. It's more of a love story than the actual jousting part of it. And so for me, this book is not worthy. I don't care about people texting on cell phones in this cheesy little love story where it seemed like the secondary story was the jousting part. And even the jousting part wasn't very exciting or intriguing. So very mid-level art. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, I'm giving this one a D. This was something that I would not expect so low quality out of Boom. They tend to come out with some pretty good stuff. But you know what? Hey, it is what it is. You can't hit them all out of the park. So I'll be passing on this second issue. Johnny Quest issue 1, released by Dynamite. Now, listen, Dynamite came out with a damn nice surprise with Space Ghost. So can they duplicate that here with Johnny Quest? This book is $5. It's written by Joe Casey, and the art is done by Sebastian Perez. The artwork is great. It has that classic element, but it does have this modern day feel to it, and it has all the characters that you know and love from the Johnny Quest Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which I thought was really cool. And so you get to see Benton Quest, you get to see Haji, Johnny, and Race. Now, what this comic does is it does continue off of the Free Comic Book Day issue, and the team left and they came back to the island that they stay on, and really I think it was like a week later, and then years have gone by. So somehow what happens in this comic book, we wind up seeing our cast of characters perplexed on what has happened in all this time. We get to see overgrown brush. The places where they live are much different. The boys come across tombstones that have their fathers in there. And it was just kind of crazy, dude. And they're just trying to figure out this whole mystery of what's going on. In the meantime, they're being attacked by drones, and at the end, you are surprised at a particular character that you see. And I don't want to spoil that, but it makes you very intrigued and hooks you for that second issue. So with that, I'm going to deem this book worthy. Absolutely, man. Dynamite doing a damn good job at first Space Ghost, and now Johnny Quest. So if I had to rate this one, I wouldn't say it's as strong as Space Ghost. Maybe it's just a personal preference thing for me, but I'm going to give this one a solid B and see where the second issue goes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Night Watcher. This is issue 1. 32 pages for the price of $4. This book is written by Juni Ba, and the art is done by Faro Penchi. Artwork's nice right from the start. I like this opening page. Kind of hooks you right from the start, and then we wind up getting a lot of this. So this is this common trope of just like people being interviewed of what's going on in the town. It's kind of a way to get readers to understand what's happening in the comic book without explaining it really throughout the story. So at one point, you're being focused on the main character, on what they're doing, and then what's going on in the town right here. And so when I first saw this, I was like, okay, well, maybe they'll do this in the first page, and then nope, you get a couple of pages of action, and then you get it again. And I was like, okay, well, that's enough of that. But then you get a couple more pages of action, and they do it again. And so every time this does this, okay, it interrupts the story, and it gets me less and less interested in the story at hand, okay? The intriguing thing for me about this first issue was for me to learn about the main character, on who that character, who the Night Watcher actually is. And that is revealed, but you also get what's going on in the comic, the story itself, the world, right? And it's called, like, I think it was like M-Day, where people are turning into mutants and stuff like that, okay? So was there enough here for me to continue this comic book? No, it's not worthy for me. I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I'm not a super diehard fan to where I like spin-off books and things like that. And the particular character that the Night Watcher is, I'm not really a huge fan of. Call me old school, I guess, right? To where I just like, I don't care about that. It doesn't really draw me in. And again, the whole interview type of thing just took me completely out of the story. And there just wasn't enough of the main character to go, I want to continue reading this. So at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to give this one an average C. It was okay, but again, for issue 1s to have me, at least me, to continue reading them, they gotta give a step above, right? Unless it's an intriguing enough story or decent setup to where I might give it another try. This one I'm just gonna pass, guys. Venom War, Spider-Man issue 1. 40 pages, price of $5, guys. This one is written by Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly, and Greg Land. Obviously tying into the Venom War event that is going on right now. Say what you want when it comes to Greg Land's artwork. I know a lot of people call him a tracer, a copycatter. I kind of stay out of that drama when it comes to that stuff, right? But some of the artwork in this book actually looks really good. You get a lot of pin-up pages in here, 2-page spreads. Some people call him a porn star tracer when you get these crazy facial expressions with women in here. But in some cases, the art looks good, and I like looking at it while reading the comic book. And most of this comic book was actually halfway decent, right? We wind up getting to see Peter back with the symbiote once again. This is not the first time we've seen Peter back in black, but being back with the symbiote was actually intriguing. And him being reacquainted with Peter, which was kind of cool, and it makes you think, hey, maybe Peter would be better off with the symbiote once again, because the symbiote has grown, right? And we get to see the relationship bond between the two characters. Of course, Peter lies to it when it comes to his feelings. He says, oh, I'm all good and everything else. And then once you wind up getting the whole situation that happens with Mary Jane entering the comic, this is when I don't like the comic, okay? Because I feel like, all right, just because it's a Spider-Man, Peter Parker comic book, why do we have to put Jackpot in there, right? Having them work together. And right away, we get to see Peter Parker all sad and be like, oh, you know, and you get to see the symbiote realize that he lied to him and that he still does have feelings for Mary Jane here. So, I don't know. That part of it for me is just dumb. I just feel like, hey, why don't these two actually get together? Because now that she's a hero, it kind of defeats the whole purpose why, you know, they weren't together to begin with. It was because she's like, well, I can endanger the people that I love being Spider-Man. Well, now that they're both heroes, fuck, dude, just come together, right? I don't know. That's just me. And then we got this whole weird thing going on where we get this symbiote goo oozing out from all these other imitation hobgoblin people and becoming this like Clintar weird monster thing. And then all of a sudden Venom is like, you have to become Venom in order to stop this thing. And I'm like, oh, you kind of lost me there on that last little cliffhanger thing. So with the whole, there's that phase going on and this whole Clintar thing, I was like, it lost a couple notches. It started off kind of strong and then it just kind of fell down a little bit for me. So at the end of the day, I'm going to make this one worthy. We're going to see where it continues to go. But I think I'm just going to give this one a C+. It was a very solid B until we got to Jackpot and the ending. Do you guys agree or disagree? Werewolf by Night. This is issue 1. Red Band edition. 36 pages. $5. Polybagged. So we get our newest Red Band edition comic book. This is written by Jason Liu. And the art is done by Sergio Fernandez del Villa. Kind of gives you a little bit of that Werewolf by Night from Disney Plus from the start with that opening page right here. The artwork is okay in this book. I like how it started off with this vlogger going into the Rockies where Jack Russell actually lives, and then he chases him out scared to death, right? So overall, I thought, like, you know, the artwork was okay. When it comes to Red Band scenes, I'm sorry, guys. It does not live up to that standard. Right there was one page with some gore. Still flipping. Not really any more gore. Let's keep going. Here's another page with some gore right here. And let's see if we see anything else. Probably the best page right here when it comes to gore. That's probably the darkest page where we get to see this character, Deathstalker, destroying these vampires. And I think we're done at that point when it comes to the gore. So does this book deserve a polybag and the title of a Red Band? Absolutely not. And I think we need to stop doing this because the whole fact of the matter is when you polybag it and you put explicit content on it, I'm expecting explicit content. And when I don't get enough of it, not even any kind of curse words or anything like that, I get more angry as I'm reading it. I'm like, where's the gore? Where's the horror? Where is this making me scared? I can read this in a regular Wolverine comic and see a lot more than this, right? So right in that itself, it's going to knock it down a notch. Now, the story itself is kind of connected to Blood Hunt. And we get to see Jack Russell kind of kill a couple of his closest friends and he's uncontrolled, right? And we wound up getting to see something happen in this comic book that spoils the whole Ghost Rider series that's going on right now, where the Hood is actually has the spirit of vengeance, and it spoils that whole thing. And I'm like, crap, that book doesn't come out till next week, and they already spoil what happens with the Hood. Because the Hood is actually in this comic setting up plans for the future of what's going on to this comic book. So I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to spoil that for you guys. Also, Elsa Bloodstone's in this comic book as well, where she's currently in the Blood Hunters storyline. And again, this takes place just after Blood Hunt. So I don't know where she could be in two places at once. So this book for me is not worthy. I might continue to still read it just to see where it does go because there is a lot of setup. I'm just pissed off as it ruins the current Spirit of Vengeance story with Red Hood in there, or Final Vengeance story, and the kind of out of continuity thing, right? And again, the whole gore situation. So if you want to, I say pass on it. I'm going to continue it just to see where it goes, but this one is a C- for me. Again, we'll see what happens, but they need to stop the Red Band stuff if it's not going to deliver on the gore and the explicit content. Spider Society, this is issue 1, 40 pages for the price of $5. Now, this book is written by Alex Segaria, and the art is done by Scott Galwelski. The art is fine in the comic. I don't think maybe it might be the best or the most detailed art, but it's definitely bright. It's definitely vibrant. It has some decent action scenes when the action scenes happen in here, and it does its job at telling its story well. But again, it's not the best artwork, okay? Now, if this is a hard book for me to kind of grade. I am a huge Spider-Man fan. I have read a lot of Spider-Man, and I've read a lot of Edge of Spider-Verse stuff. And this is not the first book or series that we've seen Spider characters together doing battle against a common threat. So for me, right from the start, I can honestly say that I'm over this. This has been done so many times. After the first or second time, it's like, do we need this anymore? Especially since we have a movie like this going on right now, okay? And so this is like a movie, but maybe in a faster pace. So if you're reading this for the first time, you might get a little bit more enjoyment out of it than I do. Now, one of the funny things that I say in these Spider-Verse books is there's so many characters in it, they do a lot of standing around and plotting and talking. And I'm like, oh, here we go, another Spider-Verse book where they're all going to sit around and talk. And the funny thing is they actually make a mention of that's what they do in the beginning of the book before all the action ramps up. So the book makes fun of itself doing that because it recognizes that might be an issue, right? So in this book, we wind up seeing all the Spider characters getting introduced. There's something that's obviously going to go wrong. Something with the Web of Life is obviously going to go wrong. And then we wind up seeing all the villains come into play and attack our Spider characters. And the whole little Spider base and everything that happens is being destroyed. The Web of Life is being destroyed. And we have a cast of few characters that are going to go into I guess, Miguel's world and try to rescue him and also save the Web of Life. Okay, Madam Web doesn't have her current powers right now, so it's hard for her to see the future. And Aranya Spider is the one that's kind of leading the cast of characters here, okay, to kind of save the day. There's other betrayal at the end of the issue, and there's that, right? So a lot of this book in here is a cast of characters that we read in the previous Edge of Spider-Verse comic books, right? So if you've been following that, you kind of know who these characters actually are. And if you're not, then you're going to be a little bit lost. Also, we get the What If Spider books as well with the cast of villains that are in here. So there's a lot here. And if you haven't read it, you might not know who these characters are. But for me, this book was not worth it. Just because I've seen this story all before. And another problem that I have with this comic book is, when does it take place? There's a lot of stories that are going on in the Spider books right now. Spider-Boy, Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, when it comes to her situation coming from Main Earth. Miles Morales is currently a vampire. In this book, he's not a vampire. There's no mention of when this book and the storyline actually takes place. And you can't say it takes place at a different time period, I guess, or not in the main Earth, because it does. It says right in the first page, New York City, Earth 616. And you got all the other characters dealing with their crap right now as well. So a little bit of continuity issues on top of that. So when it comes to this book, you might like it. You might find it enjoyable. Absolutely fine. For a longtime Spider reader like me, I'm just burnt out of it, man. I've read way too much of this. So at the end of the day, this one is going to get a D+. How is it going to be different from every other Spider book that we have read in the past? DC vs. Vampires, World War V. This is issue 1. 40 pages for the price of $5. This book is written by Matthew Rosenberg, and the art is done by Otto Schmidt. He does the cover art on this. His artwork is pretty cool. It has this distinct feel. It's very scratchy at times too. The action scenes seem very over-exaggerated, and it's fine, but in other times, it's hard to make out as well, like what's going on when it gets very hectic on the pages. But overall, it's fun, it's different, and I enjoy it. This is a little page here with Damian there. So in this comic book, if you have not read the original DC versus Vampires, I think you're going to be a little bit lost, and I would recommend going back and reading the original volume, and you'll have a good understanding of it. For me, it's been a while since I read the original volume, and I found myself a little bit lost because it's been a long time. It kind of picks up where it last left off, with everybody being in their position of power and certain things going on, right? The book does open up with a nice action sequence with our two Green Lanterns in here with John Stewart and Kyle Rayner, which I thought was interesting, and them being attacked by vampires. But the book is a little bit dense because it's trying to explain, as the story is going on, what is happening and what this world is and who's in charge and who's not in charge and what Damian is in this world, right? And so there's this very uneasy alliance between humans and vampires at this point. And there is a specific character that we get reintroduced into this comic that I don't want to spoil because it's kind of a big deal, right? And there's also a big character death that I don't really agree with, because this particular character was very integral to the first story or first volume of this. And I felt like they got rid of this character too soon. But it does have me intrigued, and this comic is very much worthy for me. Now, if you're a new reader, like I said, you might want to read the original volume, and you'll have a very much better understanding of what this comic book is about. So I don't agree with everything that happened, and it's very much kind of like a setup, a little bit dense, but I still liked it. So I'm going to give this one a B-. What did you guys think of the next volume of DC versus Vampires? Do you agree with what happened at the end, or don't you agree? X Factor, this is issue 1, 40 pages for the price of $5. The newest X book being released this week. Is this the one that's going to hit it out of the park? The one that separates from all the rest? Well, we'll talk. Writer Mark Russell, and the art is done by Bob Quinn. The artwork is actually really good in this comic book. I love the facial expressions in here. Really gives you an idea of what every single character is going through in this comic book. I loved it. The colors are bright and vibrant as well. And you get some comedy in this book. You get some seriousness in this book. You get some action in this book. There's a little bit of everything. So it's a well-balanced comic book when you read it. Now, our cast of characters in this comic is not what you see on the cover. And if you notice that when you read it, you'll notice that right away, because here you get to see Angel, and you get to see Havoc, and you get to see Pyro, right? You get to see all these different characters, but when you open up the comic book, you don't get that. You wind up getting Angel, Feral, Fire Fist, Cyber, you get, which is Cameo, which looks like Morph, and then you get Havoc. I don't know why it's Cameo. I don't know. Is it Morph? I wasn't sure there. But anyway, This book, in a way, is like the old school X Factor, but it's much more modernized. We get the military coming up with a strike force that can help at a moment's notice in time. And this guy right here is like the publicist, the guy, the social media influencer, the guy that runs it all. And he says, America needs that team of mutants that can band together and save the world, you know? And she's like, whatever. And then she's like, okay, we'll go with it. And so what happens is this guy winds up putting a cast of characters together, right? And then he brings them out on the red carpet. And it's red clock, or what was it? Click Clock. The red carpet, right? Or red carpet click clock to introduce the X Factor team. And it was hilarious because you wind up getting to see like everybody that's on the red carpet going, who is this guy? Who is this person? It's just so hilarious, right? Like nobody knew who any of these guys are. They're like all D-listers. They're all upset, right? And it's just hilarious, right? And Angel's like, you know, I think this was a bad idea. And the other guy's like, nah, this is what we want. And this is obviously all a setup for things to go bad so we can rise up the views and help the analytics and all this other stuff. So they get introduced to a nice big house, and being that Angel has this experience, he kind of knows what to expect, that eventually that there's going to be this threat, and when the threat happens, it's time to pay the price. And you wind up seeing that at the end of this comic book, and it got very intense and it got very dark at times. And by the time you wind up getting to the issue, things are much more different than the way it started out. And I was just like, damn, I can't believe they went there. And the team is different as well. This book is worthy. This book is very much worthy. This surprised the hell out of me. Out of all the X books, this was one of the books where I was like, I don't know, man. It's X Factor. Like, what are they going to do here that's different and fresh, right? It's similar, but it's more modernized. And I like that. And I like how the military is using these guys. I thought it was fun. I thought this one was the A+ book so far this week for me. And do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. All right, guys, so there you have it. If you want to see my thoughts on the rest of the comic books that I read for the current comic book week, you're going to have to wait till Monday. Check out After the Poll War. Again, I will talk about the rest of the comic books. And if you love this video, you know what you got to do. You got to give it a thumbs up. Of course, if you want to watch more content right here. Support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, read your comics so we have great comic conversation just like this. Guys, thank you for your support. I'll see you real soon.